if it wasn't the farm that started the UFO thing? It was the extraterrestrials that led you to the farm.
I think that's entirely plausible. I do. I don't have an answer for it. I don't. I mean, there are still, after all these decades, in my mind, many more questions than answers or conclusions drawn. But I will tell you truly that I feel as though my family was chosen to inhabit that place. The series of the confluence of events, the conversion that took place, everything that happened that catapulted us to that farm it all had to happen exactly the way that it did for us to end up there. It seemed like a vast cosmic conspiracy to get us there. And then once we were there, it wouldn't let us leave. So, yeah, I think that that's entirely plausible. That is not a theory that should be dismissed out of hand by any stretch of the imagination. And I think that it warrants more research, because
Yes.
I do feel as though there was some element of, if not destiny, manipulation involved. This was what we were supposed to do. This is where we were supposed to go. This is what we were supposed to see. And then 30 plus years after we left the farm, I was supposed to tell the story.
So you think that you guys were led to the farm, and now I'm going to say it like this: you were utterly put through hell in order to get information out later in life. I mean, you think you were chosen to do that?
Yeah. Wow. But not just hell, we were also steeped in heaven. There's a reason that the trilogy is called House of Darkness, House of Light. My mother is the one that titled the book. And when I looked at her quizzically about why she chose that title, she said because it was both. It was the most enlightening decade of my life, certainly of hers. She'll never go back there again. But she doesn't even look back on it with regret now. She said that she learned everything she needed to know about life and death and the afterlife living at that farm, and she has absolutely no fear of death.
Wow.
That's what I spend all my time doing, is trying to dispel fear. I think fear is the most destructive energy force. It's the most damaging emotion that we possess, and that we have to control it and use it as a tool rather than letting it control us and determine our destiny. If you think about how many people live half lives because they're afraid to do this and afraid to do that, and just try to stay in protective mode all the time because they are so fear-based, and they forget to live. And then as they come to the end of their lives and look back on everything that they didn't do because they were afraid to, and pass away from this beautiful thing called life, riddled with regret at how little they lived. I say don't live recklessly, but do live fearlessly, because there really is nothing to fear, certainly not death. I don't want pain. I could, I have no fear of death. I do fear that I would die in pain. I don't want the pain. I don't mind the death, because it really is, and to my way of thinking and based on my own personal observations, it's not an end. It's just a new beginning. Yes, we just shed this vessel and move on.
Absolutely.
But that we are all essentially spiritual beings who are having a corporeal experience in these vessels we call bodies. But these are temporary, and spirit, I believe, is permanent and eternal and infinite. That it comes from the source, that it comes from God consciousness, that we are all each the living, breathing manifestation of God consciousness, where how the Creator gets to see its own creation right through our own eyes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Real quick, Miss Sarah White, she is with Shadow Chasers Paranormal out of Milton, Florida. She just posted that she heard, why did she say? I heard something talking again. So whatever's going on your end, Andrea, is being heard out in the world. So
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go back and listen to this because not only is the house very active, but the interference has been pervasive, and there's an awful lot that's coming through this
yes,
line. And believe me, I'm sitting in a room that it's silent. You know, I've got the TV on, but it's just the picture, and um, there's no noise, there's no radios on, there's nothing going on in this room. It's completely quiet. But I heard what I thought were synthesized voices coming from your side of the phone, and what you're hearing sounds like it's coming from my side. So
yes.
I'll have to go back and listen to the archive of this and see what I can pick up from it. But yes, they are definitely with us, and they know what we're discussing, and they're very pleased about it. And you know, I have a lot of support from my sister April too. My baby sister passed away in March of 2017 very suddenly and tragically.
Oh,
And it just threw it threw all of us for a loop. I mean, our lives now, the six of us that are left, my parents and my sisters Nancy, Christine, and Cindy. Um, None of us understand how we kept living when she died. I mean, really, none of us did. I mean, we just didn't understand why we all didn't just go with her simultaneously, because none of us could even imagine that the youngest of us would be the one that goes first. But she's around us all the time. And, you know, I'll tell you, honestly, I'm so grateful that I grew up in the environment that I did, because had I not been exposed to spirit at such a young age, I don't know if I would have recognized her presence when it was around me. Had I not been so indoctrinated with the existence of spiritual entities from such a young age that it just became second nature to me. There's nothing paranormal about it to me. It's a completely normal way to live. And that's true for every member of my family. We all processed the information differently. We all related to it differently. We all had different reactions to it, but we all absorbed it. And because of that, when we lost our precious girl, we each had very, very profound visitations from her individually and in groups, as recently as Christmas night, just this past Christmas.
Oh wow.
wow.
Yeah, she makes her presence known in a big way. And she was, oh, cat fight. Percy, get off of her. Get off of her.
Oh.
Sammy, go break it up.
Okay.
Go break it up. Yeah, okay, we've got a cat named Percival, and he's the only male cat. And he thinks because he's the king of the roost that he can just dive bomb any of the female cats that he wants to at any time. And I've got the fly swatter.
The flies. Oh,
Sorry for the, I mean, if we're not being interrupted by extraterrestrials, then we're being interrupted by feline terrestrials.
That's awesome. I like that, though. I have a question, and it kind of refers back to when you were talking about the Catholic Church, how they basically shunned, well, your priest shunned or kind of left you guys hanging. It's from Leah Golston. He wants to know, why do you think the church, and this happens across the board in all denominations, who has a mission to bring awareness to people concerning hell and the demonic, are one of the first ones to shun people. They turn their backs on people and are experiencing it instead of seeking them out to help them. So when the Warrens came in to your situation, they were supposed to get the Catholic Church involved. Is that right?
No, that is just another fabrication of the film.
Okay.
They did not. Well, actually, they did come the night of the seance that went so terribly wrong that it almost cost my mother her life. They did bring a priest with him, and he was so terrified by what he saw transpire before his own eyes that night that he was huddling in the corner of the dining room, shaking like a leaf, as just like all the blood drained out of his face. He was absolutely terrified by what he saw that night. I don't think that he was a demonologist. I think that I know he was not an exorcist. He would have, had he been an exorcist, he would have stepped in immediately to do whatever he could to mitigate a very bad situation. I think that he was just a priest friend of theirs, and perhaps what he saw would need to be, reported back to the Vatican or whatever, but he couldn't get out of that house fast enough. I don't blame the whole Catholic Church for this. I mean, it seems completely counterintuitive to me. I understand the nature of the question and how bizarre it is that the church that originated the ancient ritual of exorcism and a belief in demons and the power to expel demons would instead expel the victims of dark forces that placed our family under siege. But I think that really, more than anything, it was because our priest was fear-based. I think that he had probably heard things about what was going on at our house and didn't want that to be a distraction or to chase any other members of the congregation away, many of whom had been going to that church lifelong. We were kind of the new kids in town. We'd only been living there a couple of years. So I think he probably thought it was in the best interest of the parish to run us off, which is very unfortunate. It's kind of the way I look at it is, a shepherd abandoning the flock.
Right.
And my father never got over it. I mean, it made him very angry and very bitter to the extent that he refused. He left the religion. I mean, he has nothing to do with the religion that he was born and raised into, and that was at one point a very, very important element of his life that he abandoned because he felt so abandoned.
That's interesting. When things were going on and Ed and Lorraine Warren comes in, did Lorraine, is she the one that told you about Bathsheba?
Yeah, and that's very interesting because before as I had told you earlier, a whole series of events transpired when we were living in